This is Basket Case Clubs, CBR Group's podcast where we turn basket case clubs into showcase clubs. G'day everyone and welcome back to Basket Case Clubs. I'm Michael Connelly, and for those of you who've never seen me before, this is actually what I look like. Devilishly handsome, hey. I am pleased to be your host again on Basket Case Clubs, again, as usual. And joining me is my, can I say younger? But I'm not going to say better looking because I'm definitely the better looking one. But now people can judge for themselves. I'm in real trouble now. Steve, welcome back to Basket Case Clubs.
Thank you. And in case you didn't notice, we're doing this in real time, real
together.
life.
Like, is this like together? Only our second episode in the same room?
We're drinking wine. Cheers.
So
this could be dangerous.
We had a real concern, like, because we're setting up, and Steve's wine is far more finished than mine because I was running around
because I wasn't setting
everything up because I thought, well, this is what I'm gonna put where. And we had a glass of wine because it's quite late in the evening. No, it's not that late in the evening. It's only 8:15.
We'll fix that.
It's not 8:15 in the morning every time you talk about it being a long time between drinks. So his wine is far more finished than mine is. And then the wines are still sitting on the table when we started. So we have had
So you get to see what we're really like.
Episodes.
We have. Yeah. It's just that people haven't seen us doing so.
That's right. Yes. We should also explain why we look dressed up. I mean, I always look dapper. No, I always look smart. I don't necessarily always look dapper. You know, when you dress well and people say, gee, you're looking smart. Of course I look smart. I'm me. And oh God, that's terrible. I'm
allergic to shit jokes.
Steve turned up from another meeting and I was cold and this was the closest jacket that I had. And then we looked at each other and said, this is going to look really weird when we do an episode in a hoodie.
People are going to think we always look like this. We're setting the bar really, really high.
Well, I always look like this. I don't necessarily always look like this. Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes we're in COVID attire, which means up here for business and down here for snoozing. Siesta. But it's great to be in person. I'm really looking forward to doing this, not only because of the wine.
It is nice wine too.
It is nice wine indeed. Yes, not that anyone else will be able to enjoy it. I can enjoy it vicariously through us. I've been enjoying it at a far greater rate of knots than you. But we've wanted to do this for a while, to do it in person. We've done a couple of episodes live in person.
Yeah, a couple.
We've never filmed any, so we thought it'd be a good idea for people to be able to see what we actually look like.
And for those who aren't actually looking and you're just listening,
we're sorry.
On Spotify. Well, there's that, but all of these jokes about what we're wearing are going to be going, why the hell are they talking about what they're wearing? This is really weird for the Basket Case Bros to be talking like that. So, suck it up, or don't turn your camera or your phone on to watching if you're driving. That would be bad. Or if you're out for a run, because that would also be bad because you'll bump into a street sign or a car or somebody else.
Because you will be looking at us.
Right, that's enough. It's time to talk about what we're going to talk about, which is money. So we're finishing off a mini-series. It's another maxi mini-series.
It is another maxi mini-series. Well, how many episodes are we up to in this mini-series?
I think this is number 412.
Good. All right.
In this mini-series.
I had it in that order, so I'm glad I was accurate.
Yeah. Anyway, it's time to finish off. And this is really the fun stuff, because what I want to talk about today is how to make money. So one of the big things that it's a big blockage, mental switch that's switched the wrong way, that says in club volunteer minds, you can't make money. We're not for profit, so we're not allowed to make money. It's just not true. And what we want to focus on is that, yes, you can make money, and how can you make money? Steve, I'm wondering, my first question for you this evening is it okay if I introduce one of my dogs into the podcast?
Yes.
Literally just turned up here.
Whether my answer is yes or no, Lulu's coming into the podcast.
She said, I want to say hello. It was funny, she jumped up onto my seat today because it was working from home. I was about to start a meeting and she didn't want to get put back into the laundry again in her little den.
She didn't. You let her up onto your seat.
I didn't let her. So she sat there and it really looked like she wanted to run the meeting. And the kids said, you know what, Dad, if you let her run the meeting, this was all over text when I sent a photo, they said, people will be far more entertained by her than they were by you.
Oh, yeah. They'll definitely get you back.
Yes. Anyway, for those just listening and not watching, she's a little poodle. I think.
And
she's
very
a
cute.
Toy. Yeah, she's very cute.
Yes.
But I think you call her a toy poodle. So if you hear the bell jingling in the background, it's not that I've got a collar on Steve.
Although that might be a good idea.
I think we used to put a leash on you when you were little.
That was at least 3 weeks ago. So the mindset point that you were making about not-for-profits, and this is something that we've definitely discussed probably at length in the past, fascinates me, because even when we have a discussion with a committee and they give us the correct answer when we ask what not-for-profit means, and they say
they've been there before.
Because they've been there before. Or we've had a lengthy discussion that very day, and they've got it. They've got their heads around it, and they tell us that not-for-profit only means you can't distribute any profit that you make amongst your members, but you should, and in our opinion, must strive to make profit. And I'm sure that I've gotten on my soapbox and had this rant in the past. Maybe even in the same meeting, 10 minutes later, there'll be discussions during which people who have just given us the correct answer will say things like, "Oh yeah, but we're not for profit, so we want to keep our prices affordable. We want to keep downward pressure on fees. We want to keep our canteen and bar prices reasonable."
Genuine 1974 prices.
Yep. Oh, you might not know this. Our sister is on the committee of her local theatre group. Do you know that much?
No, didn't know that.
So
doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise you. So she called me a
And
couple
you
of
think
weeks
we
ago.
like getting on our soapbox.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, there we go. We could do a
A
guest
stage
interview.
is just a giant soapbox.
She would hate that. Yeah, she would hate to be involved and get on a soapbox. But she called me a few weeks ago. I'm at the airport, just about to fly out somewhere. Of course, I'll take her call. And she said, "Oh, I've got to tell you about this committee meeting that we had last night." And the context of the discussion was asking about the process for admitting membership applicants, new members. And she said the committee were almost bragging to me that the membership has, been stagnated at 180 members for the last 20 years. And I said, that seems really illogical. Why wouldn't you want to grow your membership base? For a range of reasons. And she said, yes, I agree. But what's even more scary is that they then proceeded to brag that the membership fee hasn't increased from $5 for the last 20 years. And she's banging her head against a brick wall. And she's saying, this is, I can't understand how they think that this is good business.
Yep.
And I'm just laughing inside and out. And I'm saying, this is exactly what we discuss with clubs. Probably not to that level of extremity, but day in, day out. So
it is to that level of extremity.
Well, sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Well, and I've told the story about the rugby league club that was proud to tell me that they charged their senior players $0 a year membership because the local pub covered their fees. And I said, that's a flawed business model. What if you lose the sponsorship? They said, we'll never lose the sponsorship. And the next year, they lost the sponsorship.
So I'm wondering whether Michelle's going to crack the shits and leave, or the rest of the committee is going to stage a coup or a mutiny and get her off the committee because she's just far too progressive for this little committee.
And if it's the latter, it won't be the first youngster that they've chased away.
Now,
I'm sure
nobody listening to this, Steve, will be surprised by what we're talking about. They're saying, they've been to our meetings. And especially the discussion about money. Like, I was at a meeting last night with another club that has a club from a sport that has some older people. And it's funny how the older people seem to always be there. And what I'm thinking is that the older people who I had this discussion with someone today, the older people who used to be there who were obstructionist and resistant to change 20 years ago, they're all dead, yeah. But the next people look exactly like them and sound exactly like them and speak exactly like them. Do you know why?
Because that's their kids.
Yes, it's the next generation.
It is the next generation.
And I know the theatre.
Yeah.
I used to be on stage there. Well, in the old theatre, but the same theatre company.
And some of the same people are probably on the committee or their children.
Yeah. And if it's their kids and their parents were so entrenched in we're 180 members strong and we have $5 membership and we don't change things around here because it's the good old days and everything.
So it's so deeply rooted.
Yeah.
I think the point that we're making is that pervasive mindset that not-for-profit means something other than what it really means.
Yeah, can't distribute your profits to your members. Must, when you do spend your money, you must spend it on your objects,
Yep.
doing our purpose.
Yep.
Simple.
Yep.
You can make as much of it as you want. You can keep as much of it as you want. You can keep it for as long as you want, so long as when you spend it, it's spent on the right thing.
Yep.
So the other thing that I was thinking about, and eventually I'll restart my iPad so I can look at my notes for about what we're going to talk about tonight.
Money. We're talking about money. It's the Money Maxi series.
Yeah. Money Maxi series. There you go, Chess. That's what you can call it, the Money Maxi series. We'll see if that actually make more money in the Maxi series, the Maxi Making More Money mini series.
With Mick.
Hey! So it's on this mindset thing. Have you noticed that people start making excuses? And it's like they say, we're not doing particularly well, but gee, we're doing better than we used to, and we've come a long way. But then I always feel like I'm the outsider challenging people, and I'm saying this because of the club that I was at last night, obviously. But I always feel like and I don't feel like, and I know that's what I am, and I'm that person deliberately. I'm not here just to say, oh yeah, well, okay, no. You're actually doing really well, and you're in difficult circumstances, and cost of living pressures are going up, so it's okay to help all of your members out. But they'll make excuses. We're doing, and then you see them thinking, they say, no, we are doing that. No, you're not. So what am I thinking about there? Have you got, and we'll talk about this, we've talked about it before, have you got a pricing strategy? Mm-hmm. Which comes back to the question, what sort of club are we? Are we an all-inclusive club that is trying to be everything to everyone? By the way, good luck with that.
Yep.
Are we a club that seeks to have really, really strong on-field performance, and that's what we're going for? Or are we a club that wants to bring in the grassroots? So are we an entry-level club that's trying to bring in the beginners, and that's what we're focusing on? And if so, fantastic, that's good. But you've got to be clear on that, because at each end of the prongs of the spectrum, mm-hmm. Can a spectrum have prongs?
I wasn't going to call you on it.
I'm going to get somebody writing in saying, well, I'm a scientist and a spectrum doesn't have prongs. On the three prongs of the trident.
Let's continue.
You might have different pricing strategy around that. And it should be deliberate. Like, it shouldn't be, oh, well, that's our fees are $5 because they've always been $5. Like, WTF, man. What are you thinking, and what are you doing with that money? Like, what's your strategy with money? So okay, so to go the other way,
and sometimes organizations might have a sound strategy to keep pricing competitive or low, and I'm confident that there are examples where that's okay. But just because it's always been $5 is the opposite of okay, in my strong opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
A Parents and Friends Association where membership is free. That's a very deliberate strategy that they have to ensure that every parent of a student at that school automatically gets admitted to membership, unless if they opt out.
Yeah. So, but there's no fee for that, so they've got a nice strong membership base so that they can sell that to sponsors.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing, so that's part of the strategy, and the other example that came to mind is a historical society where they charge $20 membership fee. They've got 200 and something helpers. Mm-hmm. So these are all volunteers, but they've only got like 20 something members.
So those helpers are not all members?
No, not all, the helpers aren't all members. So why is
everyone's too scared to ask them to pay $20 membership to become a member?
The problem is there's no strategy.
Okay.
That's the problem. Until I was quizzing them saying, why are you charging membership fees? Because when I look at entrance to the historical village, mm-hmm. entries to the historical village on the financial statement, so as an income line item, I'm just remembering this, I'll make up figures because I won't get it right. Let's say that was $100,000 a year, mm-hmm. because they've got a good structure for that. Needed work still because of the fact that pricing had moved and their cost structure had moved. So what they're spending money on had all moved, but their income hadn't, because they hadn't adjusted that. Put that to one side. The membership fees equated to $980 for the year. So if they're $20, we could work out how many that is.
Wow. I hope you're not looking at me because you're expecting me to work it out, because my calculator's over there.
Well, hang on, if it was $20 and it was $1,000, it'd be
50?
50 members.
There we go. Good. That was
And
a
what
good
did I say?
guess.
920. So it's 4 less than that. So it's 46.
All right.
Yeah, 46. And if somebody out there is a mathematician going, gee, that took them a long time, it's because
We're not mathematicians.
I'm a muso. If you look over here, I've got.
Hey, wait, doesn't that have something to do with
guitars.
numbers?
Yeah, but and the piano sitting here.
Count to
but
4.
I only need to be able to count to 4. I don't need to be able to count anywhere beyond 4. So I'm good there, but
920.
but what's the strategy behind that? So
Yep.
if they wanted more members, they've got an instant membership base just by saying, well, $920, whatever I said.
Yep.
It's
920.
all immaterial.
Yep.
If it's $1,000, it's 1% of what they make just from one other business unit.
Yep.
So it's immaterial. So why are you charging it? Now, this is probably well, it's 180 degrees opposite from where I thought this conversation needed to go, where the conversation will eventually get, which is about pricing and how much price is about you, and to be very deliberate about pricing. Yes. But that's it. It's about being deliberate and it being a decision that a management committee or a board makes, and not just a result of this is how it's always been. But you can see and this is when we talked about budgeting, one of the things that I don't think we talked about was how budgeting can actually drive strategy. Because if we remember the traditional budgeting versus zero-based budgeting, if we take a zero-based budgeting approach, which is, I acknowledge that it is the more difficult because it actually involves a lot more crunching of the grey matter up here. But if you take that very deliberate, let's test everything before we just include it in the budget approach, then you're starting to have the right sorts of discussions. So in this case, we would have a line item that says entry fees to the village. And we would say $100,000. No, we would say zero based. What do we want that to be? And then we're starting to have the discussion, all right, well, what is the maximum number of school visits that we can have per year? And then how can we leverage those school visits to bring mum and dad and brothers and sisters of the kids who come to the village to come back and visit? Then how can we turn a day pass into a season pass, and we give them an annual entry for, maybe it's only double, but that's then, and I'm going to give away some secrets in this discussion, because that's taking almost an insurance-based approach that says, we will charge you your premium of $1,000 a year, but we're going to do that to 500,000 people.
Yep.
Statistically, and this is why the most well-paid people in insurance companies are the actuarians, the mathematicians who do those calculations behind the scenes. We know that only a small percentage of you is going to claim, so we're going to make bucket loads of money.
Yep.
We could have the same approach with our entrance to the village, our entries to the village. Yep. Recognizing that some people won't come back, but we've shown them such a good time and demonstrated such amazing value that if you upgrade today, it only costs you another $16 to go from a day pass to an annual pass. By the way, the day pass was $16. So immediately you're doubling your fees, but you're also, at worst case scenario, you're doubling visitation. But how is that a bad thing? Because all of the other business units in the village, food and bev sales. Yep. So how much more can we sell if we have more people here? Yep. Even if it's going to be heaps of fun finding out.
Absolutely. Even if, yes, they're getting in after the third time at no cost in terms of entry fee, you are still generating income through those other business units.
Yeah. And what does it cost you to have people there?
Especially if it's volunteers running the place.
Well, that was then the next model to say, how are we going to improve the value?
Yep.
And so massive discussions and so many opportunities. But again, it just comes down to changing that mindset to go, this is not, we're just volunteers and we've got to do all of this for free. We can do this like the business it is, not like a business, like the business it is.
Yes.
So simple, but it just takes that big change, flick of that switch in people's heads. Mm. So look, this is really interesting because where I wanted this conversation to go was to drill through a whole heap of ideas for making more money. We'll get there, but I think we're going to pull up stumps now and say that's enough for this episode, because that is enough to now go and stew on. So if you're on a committee, then what we want you to think about is, what are the excuses that we're making? What are the line items that we're not testing? What are the opportunities for considering our strategy based on how we look at money that can actually drive our business so much better and so differently? And I'm not going to shy away from calling it a business. So we've talked about the school PMC, we've talked about the historical village. When we look at sport alone, I redid these. I went and looked at the figures again. Sport alone, before we add back the value of the volunteers' time, contributes an estimated, this is by the ASC, so I'm not pulling this out of my bum, $18.7 billion a year to the Australian economy. Now, this is going to normalise.
Before the volunteer.
Yeah, before the value of the volunteer time goes in.
Shit.
And how much do you value volunteers' time? Is it $34 an hour like some of the line items in Volunteering Australia stuff says? Sugar.
No.
The minimum wage in Australia has just gone up to over $24, I think. If you're in IR, you can tell me I'm wrong. But from memory, when I saw it, so that is significant. That's the minimum wage. If somebody is an adult working in the canteen, the minimum you have to pay them. Oh, now I might be talking out of school. No, I think I'm right. Anyway, again, if you're in IR, you can tell me. If the minimum is 24, the value that these people should be giving, our committee members should be giving at a strategic level, I'm just going to say $50 minimum.
Yep.
$50 an hour minimum.
In that sort of role, I think that's reasonable. And I know that Volunteering Australia have had figures around the mid-40s, for instance.
Yep.
And that's some years ago. So I think $50 odd per hour is very reasonable. So you add that on top of, what did you say, 18.7 billion.
Billion. There's a lot in that. So,
but there's a lot in that our not-for-profit sporting clubs are missing out on.
Yeah. Yeah, because that does include people who are going and spending their money with private personal trainers or in gyms. What is it that you can do as a club that can capitalize on that market? Because you don't need to increase the size of your slice of that pie by very much to make a material difference for the impact that you can have in your community. So before we wrap up, I want to just introduce a little caveat. The caveat is that we're going to take the piss out of clubs that do things poorly and don't have a pricing strategy and don't.
They know that by now. They know that we're going to take the piss out of the clubs.
You're going to do it some more?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I cut you.
So that's going to happen.
Don't have pricing strategy.
So that's going to happen. What we're trying to do in speaking like this is the big whack in the face. It's exactly what I did to the group last night, and I did it again today. Somebody's got to give them a whack in the face to go, oh, there is another way that I can think about this. So that's what we're trying to do. We recognize that the whole thing is nuanced, and we're not saying rush out and make massive change. We're saying make deliberate decisions and then stick by those decisions. So work out what sort of business you're in. And that's a fascinating question. My God, I've been asking that for a while now, and the amount of time it takes before I get any answers. There's a lot of gazing into space that happens when I ask that question. What business are we in? And that if we're in the business of sport as a starting point, as the catch-all, well, that's our market. That's a big market. It is a huge market. So take what we say with the grain of salt that is required in your situation, obviously. Maybe this feels like a bit of a disclaimer, Steve. Like, please understand.
Very unbasket casey, clumsy.
This is not advice. It's information is general in nature. I think Jess put something like that in.
This is our musings. Yes.
Yes. This is our musings. Yes. That's exactly what it is. Anyway, we shall continue this. I'm going to call it a rant next time. Thank you for joining us.
The coordinated rant.
Club, a coordinated rant.
And you're welcome.
I would like to thank Jess for making us sound good, but she's also now got to make us look good. And
that's
going
tough.
to be a big ask. So if you're not already connected with us on all of our social channels, you can get there. We'll put the links to all of our social channels in the description to the episode. Of course, one of the really important things, though, before you skip next to the next one, is we've got a webinar coming up on this on the 3rd of July. So what's today? The 18th of June. So a couple of weeks. We've got a webinar on this topic. Now, for all of you Basket Case Clubs listeners and now viewers, you're going to go, oh, well, I don't need to go to the webinar because I've heard it all before. But the webinar will be a nice, succinct chunk that you can share with the other people on your committee who maybe need that bit of a swift kick in the bum to say it's time to make some change and this is a way to think about it. So we'll be presenting what are the great opportunities that are available. So that's coming up. So I definitely encourage you to register for that one. cprgroup.com.au/webinars will take you straight there where you can register for that one. And of course, sign up to our newsletter where you'll get lots of little tidbits of information and helpful tips and stuff that we talk about, which is really cool. Steve, thank you for, and I haven't said it yet, joining me for this little journey of basket casey goodness.
It has been my pleasure as always, and I shall look forward in every way possible to next time. Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Adios.
Basket Case Clubs acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country on which we record, being Yugambeh, Turrbal, Jagera and Kabi Kabi land. We recognise their enduring connection to land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to First Nations listeners.